Every man takes risks to make money, but very few actually know which risks create wealth. After 40, you don't get unlimited attempts and you don't get unlimited time to recover. The wrong risk can stall you for years and the right one can change your financial future entirely. I'm Paudie Kelly, I'm a financial consultant, and in this video, I'm going to show you 3 risks you need to take to build real wealth after 40. Now let's start with the truth that no one argues with. Risk and reward are 2 sides of the same coin. You don't get one without the other. But here's what most men then get wrong. They assume that the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But that's too simplistic, it doesn't play out. Risk and return do go hand in hand, but not all risk is created equal. Let's say you stick your money into a bank account and get 5% return on your savings. Or you invest in a friend's startup in return for 5% per year. Same return, but very different probability. One works even if nothing expected happens, 100% probable. The other only works if everything goes well, maybe 10% probable. The return per unit of risk is far greater in the savings account than it is in the startup investment. So higher risk doesn't equal higher return, not even close. What matters is how much return you're getting for how much risk you're taking. Financially successful men don't chase returns. They optimize for return per unit of risk. Because the relationship isn't balanced, it tilts. And when you see that tilt, you can stack the odds in your favor. So think of it like this. Financial opportunities are never neutral. They either tilt negatively or positively. They're either a negative asymmetric bet or a positive asymmetric bet. Let's start with negative asymmetry because this is what most people do wrong. But let's first define symmetry and asymmetry. Asymmetry is just basically the imbalance between upside and downside. So when a financial risk is high downside, low upside, it's a negative asymmetric bet. There's an imbalance between risk and reward, but not in your favor. Think of betting your house to just win $1 single, right? The upside is tiny and one loss and it could ruin you. Now don't make the mistake to think that most men would stay away from this risk, because if you thought that, you're wrong. In fact, most men take these risks on a daily basis without realizing it. Take this for example. Half of men over 40 carry high interest debt. That means every month before you move forward, you're fighting gravity. You're paying for the past while trying to build the future. The upside is whatever you spend the money on, clothes, dinner, gadgets. The downside is growing financial pressure that compounds against you every single day. The truth is that if you're not where you want to be financially, if you're not getting the outcomes you want, it's probably because of this. You're taking negative asymmetric bets and you're quietly stacking the odds against yourself without you even knowing it. But here's the thing, you can change your outcomes by changing your inputs. Instead of making negative asymmetric bets, you can make positive asymmetric bets. A positive asymmetric bet is where the downside is limited, but the upside is unlimited. It's the complete opposite. A classic example would be investing $1,000 in a blue chip company. Right? The downside is you can lose that $1,000, but it's limited. The upside is that over time, it'll 10, 15, 20x. The upside is much, much higher, maybe even uncapped. The reality is that over 40, what separates men who are financially successful and men who aren't is that the men who are financially successful optimize for asymmetry, positive asymmetry. They naturally look for upside and they deliberately limit downside. To give you an idea, here are some negative asymmetric bets you make but shouldn't. Carry high interest debt. Finance an expensive car. Increase your lifestyle every time your income increases. Keep too much money sitting in cash. All of these limit your upside and expose you to long-term downside. So before you start chasing big wins, first remove all negative asymmetric risks from your life. You'll immediately stack the odds in your favor. But if you want to build enough wealth that you can actually change your life, then you do need to do more. Removing negative asymmetric bets is not enough. You need to start taking positive ones. But to do that, you first need to fix the number one mistake that catches everyone out. I've seen this happen so many times, and I've seen it just lead to financial ruin. Most men think they get rich by winning one big game, having one big outcome, but the reality is they don't. Almost no one builds wealth from one lucky swing. That's the difference. Wealth isn't built from one big swing. It's built from staying in the game long enough for the math to work out. Failure in a repeatable game is feedback. You adjust, you recover, you go again. Failure in a one-off game is ruin. One mistake, you're out of the game entirely. No reset, no second chances. But this is where most men still go wrong. Even when they look for positive asymmetry, they don't look for probability. And this is what turns a good opportunity into an expensive mistake. You can find a deal or an investment that promises good returns, right? And that's great, that's exciting. But here's the catch. When the probability is stacked against you, you're silently losing the more you play. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's expected value. It's the payoff times the probability. That's what matters. Take meme coins, for example. Consider it a high-risk investment. 99% chance you lose $1,000, 1% chance you make $10,000. So you got 0.99 times minus 1,000 plus 0.01 times plus 10,000. So your expected value here is negative $890. Every bet is quietly draining your money here. Repeat it enough times and you trend towards zero. Now compare to a high growth startup, still risky but not as bad. 90% chance you lose $10,000, 10% chance you make $200,000 plus. So it's 0.9 times minus 10,000 plus 0.1 times plus 200,000. Your expected value here is a positive $11,000. You lose 9 times out of 10, but mathematically, the odds are now stacked in your favor. One drains you and one builds you. This is the difference between understanding probability and not, and how it impacts you over multiple outcomes. After 40, this is the real skill. Not chasing big wins, not avoiding risk altogether, but finding repeatable games that have positive asymmetry and a positive expected value. All money decisions are risks, and a decision is only a good decision if, when repeated over multiple outcomes, the odds are still stacked in your favor. And once you understand that, you stop trying to build wealth with one big swing, and you start building wealth in ways that are mathematically inevitable. But if you want to end up where few people do, you have to be willing to do what most people won't. And the truth is, most men, especially men in their 40s, are hardwired to be short-term focused, to think in weeks and months, not years and decades. They want everything and they want it all now. But that's dangerous. In fact, it's possibly one of the most biggest financial mistakes someone over 40 can make. And here's why. Time and risk are inseparable. The shorter the time frame, the greater the risk. The longer the time frame, the lower the risk. And there's 2 reasons for this. The first is that if you have a long time frame, then you avoid short-term volatility. Let's say you have $400,000 invested in the markets and there's a market downturn and your portfolio falls to, let's say, $250,000. You have time to ride those losses until they recover and hit new highs. You don't have to realize that loss. On a shorter time frame, you might have to sell your investments when the market is down and realize that loss. Now, the second is that if you have a long enough time frame, you can recover realized losses. In the same example, if your $400,000 drops to $250,000, but this time you have to actually sell and realize those losses, then it hurts. But it hurts much more if you have no time to recover versus if you still have years or even decades to recoup what you've lost and make more back. It's like 2 boats at sea taking on water. The first boat is far from shore, but it has time, supplies, and calm weather. So the crew patches the leak, they bail the water, they recover. The second boat takes on the same leak, but it's in the storm, close to the rocks, low on fuel, same hole, but no time. And without time, a small problem becomes a sinking ship. When you shorten the time frame of the risk you take, then one mistake can hurt more, one setback can take longer to fix, and then one bad decision can actually knock you out of the game entirely. But on the other hand, the more time you have, the opposite is true. Time absorbs downside, it absorbs risk. So in this case, you can adjust, you can recover, you can repeat all the way to financial success. And it doesn't really just stop there, because the great thing is that time also multiplies upside. Skills compound, investments compound, good decisions compound. That's why time is the ultimate multiplier. Let's make this painfully clear. A 40-year-old invests $10,000 at 10%. After 25 years, it's worth $110,000. A 50-year-old invests the same $10,000 at the same return. After 15 years, it's worth only around $42,000. Same investment, same return, but one man ends up with nearly 3 times more just because he had 10 years extra. That 10-year difference, it's the difference between choosing when to retire early or having to keep working even when you don't want to. It's taking care of your kids freely, or it's hoping nothing goes wrong. And the reason the difference is so great is because over those 10 years, it's compounding, right? Every year is adding more than the year before. This is what separates the two so much. At first, nothing happens, and then everything happens. Time absorbs risks and multiplies returns. And if you understand that, you'll make much better financial decisions and have much better financial outcomes. The truth is that men who take short-term risks need things to work out now. They get desperate, so they panic and they worry and they stress. But people who take long-term risks, they get to play repeatable games, they get to win, and in fact, they tend to win big. So look, the 3 risks you need to take to change your life after 40 are this. Risks where the downside is capped and the upside is uncapped. Risks where the math works in your favor over time, and risks that give you enough runway to survive mistakes and let compounding work. Miss one of these and the structure collapses. So look, here's the real takeaway. Financial success for a man over 40 isn't about avoiding risks. It's about choosing the right risks. You need to avoid negative asymmetric bets. You need to play repeatable games, and you need to give yourself time. Do these 3 things, and that's the difference between a man who gets wiped out and a man who builds real long-term wealth.